The next up, we've got Foschini, which consists of 14 trading brands and sells fashion, jewelry, accessories, cosmetics, cell phones, homewares and more. It trades on a price-earnings ratio of 21.5 and a dividend yield of 2.8% with a market cap of 42 billion rand. Sure, they are involved in almost anything that's retail. They've got brands all over the place, targeting all levels of LSM groups. We actually discussed this one last week in terms of fashion retail, and we did take a small position in Foschini Group, which has done really well in quite a short period of time. In terms of its jewelry and luxury brands, do you follow those very closely?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the jewelry luxury brands, that's would be American, Swiss and Stearns. I mean, that weirdly, you know, is actually, it's sort of the mid-tier of the triangle. So it's focusing on mid-LSM. It's almost buying down from the very expensive jewelry brands. It makes up probably...
So that'll be competing with maybe the high ends like Browns and those sort of...
Yeah, not really competing there, competing more against something like NWJ. So it's a more middle segment. It's a significant portion. I mean, it makes up about 10% of sales. So it's not massive for the group, but I mean, definitely an important contributor. And I think, you know, also looking fairly solid at the moment. So I mean, you know, if you look at it, it is a different business to the other fashion. I mean, if you look at their sales growth, I mean, they did grow, I think, at about 5%. So it is lagging the average within Foschini. But like I said, a completely different business from the usual fashion retail.
And in terms of the margins of these businesses, like I mentioned earlier, we are seeing input costs come down slightly because precious metals prices have been fairly flat. The oil prices coming down, the consumers looking a bit stronger. Do you think, you know, that sales growth of 5%, do you think maybe that's a bit of a once-off and we should still see stronger growth next year?
I think I mean, that is something that's highlighted a lot by the overseas. The oil price as an input is incredibly important for some of the manufacturers. I mean, that, yes, to an extent, and obviously that should feed through to an increased sort of consumer demand. But that, I think, you know, you're going to get more from a Richemont than from a Foschini, because if you look at how our sort of, you know, under recovery taxes work, I mean, our consumers not quite seeing the reduction in petrol price that everyone else is seeing around the globe. So I think if you are going to try and play that angle, I mean, I'd rather do it with the overseas, with something like a Richemont, or even going through maybe a De Beers like via Anglo, because they're obviously very dependent on Chinese and big Chinese, Indian and US growth rates. Foschini maybe not as dependent on that though.
Well, I really showed my cards on this one last week, calling it hot, and we took out a small position. I do like the overall mix. They've got the nice sports theme. They've got you know, cosmetics. They're pretty well diversified.
I think if you look at, I mean, again, if we're just talking about the jewelry, maybe the laggard in the stable, but again, the whole Foschini group, I think, is quite exciting at the moment. I mean, if you look at also their store rollout plan, they are going on a massive sort of spending spree and really pushing into Africa.
And phase 8 in the UK.
Exactly, and I mean, they've also, you know, adding new sort of businesses as well that are fairly acquisitive, and I think that's going to feed into growth. It is a very difficult operating environment for them. Let's not make any mistakes. I mean, you've got the likes of Zara and all these international brands coming in that are going to compete with them, and you have got a consumer that's under pressure. But the fact that they're investing for the future now, I think, is going to bode very well. If you do get a sort of a little bit of a turn in the credit cycle, you know, the South African consumer or Southern African consumer gets, you know, a little bit of pressure comes off.
I'm sensing a hot call here.
There could potentially be a big re-rating.
And we've seen the share price re-rating.
Yeah, already it has. Yeah, the share price has been doing very well. It's definitely not a laggard.
So you're calling this hot?
Yeah, I'll call it hot as well.
Hot on Foschini.